asked to be a part of this panel. Just to elaborate a little bit further, APS convened on June 2018 in response to the police harassment and brutality we witnessed on the Surrey Strip on 135 Bay Street, which was home to more than 100 people until it was cleared by the city just 1 year ago. Since then, we have used tactics to challenge the power of the police by working with and learning from homeless people and racialized youth, which are two communities that face intense policing and criminalization in Surrey. And on this note, we want to emphasize that holding this event on Check Day was a missed opportunity, and a lot of the people who should be in this room or who would have been interested in participating in this conversation and this panel are not here because of the way in which Check Day disrupts people's daily schedules. And so it's important that going forward, CCAP acknowledge this and recognize that this isn't the best way of going forward, and it could be more inclusive.
Word.
So the city of Surrey has the largest Rcmp detachment in the country, with about 30% of the city's annual budget going to funding police activities, and is also home to the BC Rcmp E Division's headquarters. Despite declining rates of violent crime, including gang-related crime in Surrey and across Canada, police budgets continue to rise. The mass media, government, and police draw people's fears about crime in order to justify their budgets and integrate cops further into our communities. Tonight I'm going to discuss the problem of police integration into communities through two concepts, moral panics and police layering. Moral panics and layering build up police power and keep us tethered to the police ideologically and materially. In APS, we believe that in order to begin building organized democratic communities, we must divest from the police not just financially, but also psychologically. Gang violence dominates public discourse in and about Surrey to the point that, according to one poll, crime was the #1 issue in the election last fall, above poverty, housing, and transportation. I'll argue that we should understand this fixation on crime, gangs, and illicit drugs through the lens of moral panic. The concept of moral panic comes from the British sociologist Stanley Cohen. It refers to a phenomenon where something becomes defined as a threat to societal values and interests. Black cultural studies scholar Stuart Hall developed this concept further through his research on mugging in Britain during the 1970s. At the time, the British public saw mugging as a real social problem, a serious threat, which they believed could only be addressed through police and the courts. This perception, buttressed by the mainstream media, lent legitimacy to a more than usual exercise of control by the police and courts through, for example, harsher sentences. But when Hall examined the statistics, he saw that mugging wasn't a new phenomenon at all, nor was it anywhere near as serious as it was made out to be. So he asked, if mugging isn't new, why are people in a panic all of a sudden? And he pointed to a deeper crisis during the early days of neoliberal austerity when cuts to public spending on social services began. The moral panic around mugging served to redirect attention away from this economic and social crisis towards one thing, mugging, which was presumed to have a simple solution, tough on crime policies. In Surrey, there is a moral panic around crime, gangs, and illicit drugs. The myth that crime is on the rise because the courts and police are too soft on criminals helps win Surrey residents' support for investing in increasingly coercive state measures to improve public order. It also legitimizes police and courts' use of harsher and more invasive tactics to control residents and suppress violence, including layered policing. Surrey has implemented a layered policing approach, which results in the extension of policing into all areas of social interaction and activity. Surveillance and regulation permeate all public and social spaces in Surrey, including our streets, schools, community centers, and even our homes. The layered model incorporates traditional methods associated with policing, like boots on the ground and flyover helicopters, with other formal and informal, public and private, paid and volunteer elements. By using multiple methods, the police work in tandem with community groups or community resources to, quote-unquote, serve the needs of so-called vulnerable people, while simultaneously surveilling these same people and criminalizing them. An example of this is the recent decision to combine Surrey Rcmp's outreach team, which was created to intensely surveil homeless people living on the Strip and eventually disperse them, with the Police Mental Health Intervention Unit to create a new police mental health outreach team to provide homeless people with a more comprehensive outreach. We have seen other municipalities follow suit. For example, Abbotsford launched a similar program with the bizarre name Project Angel earlier this year. This relationship-focused or trauma-informed approach is promoted as a solution, completely ignoring that what homeless people are demanding is dignified housing, not better relationships with pigs. Police outreach teams are unable to meet communities' actual needs, but that's not what they are designed to do anyways. They are driven by business owners on boards of trade and developers connected with City Hall who understand policing as a strategy to improve the conditions of profitability in their investments in Surrey. Using state power, whether through the hard power of cops, courts, and prisons, or the soft power of social workers, youth workers, and school administrators, ultimately allowed the real causes of this panic to continue unabated. It's important to understand the way the moral panic in Surrey is racialized. When white property owners fix out on crime, it's an expression of racist anxieties and concerns about their own material interests. When racialized parents express desperation for somebody to do something about gang violence, they are expressing concern for their children's futures, focusing on the violence and uncertainty associated with a life of crime. They are responding to a real crisis of racism, poverty, alienation, and violence. The reality of being excluded from civil society, which in Canada is defined as property owning, middle class, and white. Those who are excluded from civil society face dire prospects for the future, living under a settler colonial and capitalist social order, and have no option but to face the social and economic realities that come with this system. That is, fewer social services, skyrocketing rental prices, few housing options, and more precarious work. So, while gang violence may be one manifestation of this broader crisis, gangs are not the root of the problem. For those of us who aren't part of civil society, living under a colonial capitalist social order persistently threatens us with physical and spiritual death. Our relatives use multiple methods to survive these conditions, whether it be through wealth distribution like petty theft, using drugs to soothe our pain, or gaining a sense of belonging and economic security for the few of us who do become gang involved. People with more economic and material security, but whose belonging within civil society is precarious, may cling to whatever little differentiates them from so-called criminals, gangsters, and drug addicts. People are conditioned to rely on the police to maintain a sense of security, safety, and social order. As a result, though, racialized youth, particularly South Asian and Black youth, low-income, working class, homeless, and Indigenous people are targeted and criminalized in Surrey and across these territories. We are using the colonizers' logic when we try to manage our suffering through division. The police constrain our imagination for the future, obscure the social and economic threads that envelop and connect us, and divert our impulses to care for our relatives towards more policing, surveillance, and snitch tactics. We intuit the impossibility of healing through punishment, yet the integration of policing into our communities and minds has made many of us feel small. One time, when I led an apps workshop on the social function of the police in a grade 10 classroom, a young Black student reflected that resistance seems pointless because all of the people-led resistances led by our Indigenous and working class brothers, sisters, and relatives have been repressed by the state. This reflection drives home the need to continue organizing against policing and criminalization of Surrey as part of a broader anti-colonial and anti-capitalist movement. We understand that people see the police as an option to ease their fears out of a perceived lack of options. APS understands this as a lack of organization among Surrey residents, and it spurs us to organize workshops and other public education, rallies, and actions. Through this work, we teach each other how our histories, present, and futures are woven together, and we hold space to help those who are brutalized by the police see the importance of their leadership in the fight towards building democratic people power.